Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. You know, every living organism absolutely needs a nervous system to survive, right? To react to danger, to find food, to just thrive. Well, a modern business is honestly exactly the same. But instead of physical nerves transmitting sensations, organizations survive through the flow of data. Think about what happens to an organism when its nervous system fails. Paralysis sets in. It can't react to threats, it can't find sustenance, and eventually, it just fails completely. Today, we're going to demystify the complex nervous system of the corporate world to make sure that doesn't happen. We'll be breaking down accounting information systems and exploring the massive scale of enterprise resource planning. Okay, let's dive into this.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer. We'll be covering 1. Data versus useful information. 2. The core business cycles. 3. The accounting information system. 4. The data processing cycle. And finally, 5. Enterprise resource planning.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Data versus Useful Information.
We kind of toss the words data and information around casually like they mean the exact same thing, don't we? But in business, we absolutely shouldn't. Data is really just raw facts that have been recorded. On their own, they are totally insufficient for making decisions. Imagine a massive list of, say, 10,000 random customers' zip codes. That is data. Information, on the other hand, is process data that you actually use to make a decision. Information is taking those 10,000 zip codes and mapping out a geographic trend that shows, hey, 80% of our sales are coming from just 2 distinct neighborhoods. That tells you exactly where to put your next store. Generating that kind of strategic information is the ultimate goal here. But there's a vital catch. The financial benefits of that information, like reducing uncertainty and improving your planning, must completely outweigh the time, software, and human resources it actually costs to produce it.
But we've got to watch out for a major threat that managers face today: information overload. We've all been there, right? Staring blankly at a 50-page spreadsheet packed with tiny numbers, just completely paralyzed by analysis. You might naturally think having more reports is always better, but if you have too much information thrown at you without context, it actually becomes more, not less difficult to make a decision. The goal isn't just generating more data. The goal is generating the absolute right data at the exact right time.
Which begs the obvious question. Put yourself in the shoes of a busy decision maker for a second. When a dense financial report hits your desk at 8 a.m., how do you know if it's high-quality information or just a bunch of noise that's going to overload your morning? What actually transforms that overload into a clear path forward?
Well, according to the framework we're exploring today, useful information has 7 absolute must-haves. Missing even one of these can render your reports virtually useless. First, it must be relevant. Does it actually change your strategy or correct a past expectation? Second, it must be reliable. Is it completely free from error and bias? Third, complete. Did someone leave out crucial facts that totally change the context? Fourth, it has to be timely, arriving before it loses its capacity to actually influence a decision. I mean, yesterday's stock prices don't help you day trade today. Fifth, it must be understandable. If users can't perceive its significance, it's useless. Sixth, it must be verifiable, meaning 2 independent people would reach the exact same conclusion looking at the same data. And finally, 7th, accessible. Is it available when needed in a format you can actually use? These 7 traits are the alchemy that transforms raw noise into high-value strategic information.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core business cycles.
We're transitioning now from abstract information theory to the tangible, daily operations that form the actual engine of a business. At its absolute core, business is basically a continuous flow of give-get transactions between different entities. To see how these main cycles interact, let's just trace a single product, say a brand new smartphone, through this ecosystem. It starts with the financing cycle. Founders give equity to investors to get the initial cash. Then there's the human resources cycle, giving that cash to get the labor required to design the phone. The expenditure cycle steps in, giving cash to suppliers to get the raw materials. The production cycle then takes over, giving that labor and raw materials to actually build and get the finished smartphone. And finally, the revenue cycle, giving that finished phone to a customer to get cash back into the business. It's a massive, continuous ecosystem. And every single millisecond of that constant interaction generates massive amounts of operational data.
Now, as these cycles churn away, they build into what we call the value chain. As a product moves along this chain, it literally gains value at every single step. Notice how the primary activities at the bottom, things like inbound logistics, the actual operations, outbound logistics, marketing, and post-sale service, those are the physical steps of getting that smartphone into a user's hands. But they are completely dependent on the support activities hovering above them: firm infrastructure, human resources, purchasing, and technology development. Those support activities are the crucial, invisible backbone that allows the primary activities to function efficiently and actually create that added profit margin.
Okay, on to Section 3, the Accounting Information System.
It's time to introduce the real hero technology of our explainer. If accounting is the language of business, think of the Accounting Information System, or AIS, as kind of like the ultimate translator. It's the critical tool that connects raw data to the business engine. And it's not just a piece of software installed on a server somewhere. It's an entire ecosystem. The AIS collects, processes, stores, and reports data. It's made up of the people using it, the daily procedures, the data itself, the software interfaces, the IT infrastructure, and the internal security controls, all working perfectly in tandem. By transforming data into a language management can actually understand, the AIS allows leaders to effectively plan and control their organization. It adds massive value by improving efficiency, sharing vital knowledge across departments, and dramatically sharpening decision-making.
Next up is Section 4, the data processing cycle. Let's follow a single, abstract unit of data on its practical journey through this system. The entire data processing cycle boils down to 4 main steps: input, process, output, and storage. As a business activity occurs, data is inputted, say a customer swiping a credit card. Then that swipe is processed, eventually placed into secure storage, and finally outputted as a soft copy on a manager's screen or maybe a printed receipt. This cycle is where the stakes are incredibly high. There's an old saying in computer science: garbage in, garbage out. If your input mechanism is flawed, your stored data is compromised, and your outputted reports are dangerously misleading. Crucially, how an organization deliberately designs this cycle determines exactly what data is kept, how cleanly it's organized, and who actually gets the security clearance to access it.
Digging into that process step for a second, we find 4 specific actions a system continuously performs to keep information current and perfectly accurate. These activities are easily remembered by an acronym that, well, it sounds terrible, but it's absolutely essential to modern business: CRUD. You create new records, you read existing records to check a status, you update existing records when things change, or you delete records when they are obsolete. Without this continuous CRUD cycle, a business's database would instantly stagnate, turning into a digital graveyard instead of a real-time reflection of current reality.
So what about the storage step? Computer-based storage builds up in a very specific, logical hierarchy. It's like a giant puzzle. Let's ground this with a real-world corporate example. We start with an entity. Think of this as your absolute top client. Next is an attribute, which is a specific fact about that entity, like their primary shipping address. That address lives securely inside a field. A group of related attributes, their address, phone number, and credit limit, all about that single entity, forms a complete record. And finally, a massive group of related records comes together to create a full file, like your entire corporate customer master file. To see how these concepts actually stack up in practice, just think about the structure of a real database. At the top, you have the specific attributes and organization tracks, like customer number, name, address, credit limit. The individual spaces where those specific, isolated data values live are the fields. Following the horizontal row for one specific company gives you their complete, unified record. And this entire collection of records stacked together forms your file. Anchoring these abstract concepts visually shows exactly how methodically modern businesses construct their informational lifelines to ensure absolutely nothing ever falls through the cracks.
And finally, Section 5, Enterprise Resource Planning Systems.
We are scaling way up now, from basic localized storage to massive, fully integrated corporate infrastructures. An enterprise resource planning system, or ERP, acts as the ultimate corporate integrator. Notice the hub and spoke model. Remember those completely separate business cycles we discussed earlier? Revenue, expenditure, production, HR. An ERP takes all of those disparate, previously isolated modules and plugs them directly into one massive centralized database right in the center. Marketing is no longer siloed from production. HR is no longer siloed from finance. Every single department is suddenly speaking the exact same language, simultaneously pulling from the exact same central brain. It's a real game changer. The advantages you gain from this massive centralization are literally revolutionary. Because everything is integrated, data is captured just once. This is the holy grail of corporate efficiency. There is no more redundant data entry. Better yet, there are no more agonizing executive meetings where the sales director and the finance director spend an hour arguing over whose disconnected spreadsheet has the correct revenue numbers. There is only one number. This leads to significantly greater management visibility and incredibly sharp monitoring capabilities. It also forces standardized procedures across the whole organization, resulting in vastly improved, lightning-fast customer service.
But actually, we absolutely have to weigh those amazing benefits against the painful, often daunting realities of implementing an ERP. This is the classic ERP nightmare that executives dread. The disadvantages are highly significant. These systems come with eye-watering upfront costs and take years, not months, to fully implement. Rolling out an ERP is incredibly complex, and fundamentally changing your existing business processes can be enormously disruptive to your day-to-day operations. Plus, you're dealing with basic human nature. Because you are standardizing procedures and forcing people to abandon the customized little workflows they've used comfortably for a decade, you will almost certainly face intense internal resistance to change from within your own organization.
Which leaves us with a really vital question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Knowing the massive competitive advantages of centralized high-quality information, is the exorbitant cost, the operational disruption, and the sheer human headache of implementing an ERP actually worth the risk of being completely left behind with disconnected, siloed data? As we've explored today, that fragile line between raw noise and actionable information is exactly where modern businesses succeed or where they fail. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep exploring the fascinating systems that power our world.